Welcome everyone to the Pantheon. I'm Ray,
I'm Effie.
and today we're looking at the 2005 movie Elektra, starring Jennifer Garner. The film, it underperformed. Let's be honest. Critics were lukewarm. Audiences were a little bit lukewarm on it too. Even though it underperformed and didn't do too well in the box office, Jennifer Garner walked away relatively unscathed by it. Her commitment to play the character was one of the highlights of the movie. So let's get into this film. It's directed by Rob Bowman. Bowman is known for being a TV director. He did many episodes of The X-Files. The cinematographer for this movie was was a cinematographer in the X-Files series. This was his first time doing a feature film. It was written. The screenplay was written by Zach Metzner and Stuart, I believe it's pronounced Zuckerman. They did the original screenplay. Bowman pitched the movie, his idea to the movie, to the producers Gary Foster and Avi Arad, who are the producers for Daredevil. And Arad's been the producer for all these Marvel movies up to this point. He's a champion. The idea of the characters are based on stories that we are familiar with in the comic books. So he makes sure, rather than being just an action movie, we're seeing motivations of these characters. So the characters would fight amongst themselves as well as the enemy, which is what makes, I guess, when you watch X-Men, X-Men United, so amazing, is because the conflict of like Cyclops and Wolverine and the relationship between Jean Grey, the love triangle. If it was just an introduction, if it was just a shoot 'em up movie, or X-Men versus the mutants, evil mutants of the Brotherhood, with Magneto and Charles Xavier being the polar opposites, you may not see those little nuances. So Avi Arad, even though he might have been a difficult person to work with, I don't know, I've heard stories. I understand that he always championed the idea of making sure that we are faithful to, the filmmakers are faithful to 30 to 40 years of content, of storytelling that is the characters. The character story comes first, the action, blow-em-ups will come second. So when Bowman pitched the idea of having a character-centric story, he jumped at the chance to work with Bowman. Same with Gary Foster, having a more subdued, lower budget because it's more character-driven. Foster and Arad was enthusiastic, and they went with his vision.
There was a lot of martial arts in it and stuff, but it dragged on a bit. I felt in some places.
Right.
S- So the only part I liked was the martial arts, and everything else I kind of fell asleep.
Oh,
at.
really?
Yeah, I don't know why, but I don't know. I guess the thing with the hand and at the end, that was interesting. And I wouldn't have minded a sequel, but that didn't happen, just to maybe redeem it. But oh well.
Okay. Well, you mentioned about the hand. So, this Daredevil didn't offer that's part of the storyline. So,
Oh,
in comparing to the series, because Elektra, we'll be getting to that later on, uh,
mm.
season two Daredevil. How do you think that holds up in terms of storytelling? Because you have characters from this movie and season two of Daredevil. How do you look at this movie? Uh,
Well, I thought it pieced it like together a little bit, but beyond that, I don't know. I kind of felt it dragged, and the love story kind of slowed it down. But I don't know. It was an okay movie.
I think, now I looked at it, I enjoyed it. I remember coming out of it thinking it wasn't that bad. It was actually better than Daredevil in terms of like the storytelling and my opinions and feelings towards the Electric character. But this is why, in my opinion, is why it didn't do too well. And I think it's because it came out at a time, those two movies, Daredevil and Elektra, came out at a time, in terms of the zeitgeist or the Rolodex of films that were coming out, the caliber of films were high budget, and the audience was conditioned at this point to receiving blockbuster films. So to see a movie that should have went, if it had a video on demand or Netflix, this would have done far better. It would have been far well received, but because it was a theatrical release, and they knew it had didn't really have the right coded audiences, and it came around early. It came around, I think it was April of 2005, so it had an early release. Um, it didn't do it too many. It didn't do too many favors for the movie. In May, the next month, was Sin City, and at that point, the trailers and the promotions for Sin City was already out. So you had that noir with color scheme, and it was Frank Miller. And then knowing that Frank Miller designed Daredevil and Electro, this was a stylistic, for the eyes, something different, and critics were dying to see that. So this was the follow Electro, and then after that we had Batman Begins, the introduction to Christopher Nolan's work, and then after that month, the following month, then you had the conclusions for Revenge of the Sith. So you had a bunch of things waiting in the wings that was building up to be a colossal summer, and the first film we see is this, and it's sort of like it's the first film that didn't go on upward trajectory. It was the films that were going down. And it wasn't until later on that the other films, like Spider-Man 3 and like At Last Stand, where those went down too. The downward trend would follow. But what started the downward trend would be Daredevil and Elektra. That was the unfortunate, I think that's what's in the zeitgeist. That's what we were seeing. So seeing that action, seeing all that was, it was kind of doomed to fail, because if the focus was just storytelling and focus on character development and not have that level of action or effects, which was very, very limited in this case, fans and critics were surprised. Evie, what was your thoughts?
Um, that was a bit of a surprise, like like the little kid was the golden child or whatever. It was interesting, not too bad, but a bit of a surprise, which is kind of good, I guess. That somebody is like they're a little kid, who they have to protect and stuff.
It's one of the things that stood out for me in rewatching it was the fact that the introduction had a double shot, meaning there was two different introductions to the movie, and I don't think I've ever seen where they had two completely different introductions before you got into the story. So you opened up with a narration of the movie, provided by Terrence Stamp as the voice of Stick, who played Stick but voiced the narration. And it was a very generalized and very vague introduction. And then we have actor Jason Isaac playing mob boss DeMarco, and he gives an exposition of her being an assassin, and that was really cool. It was really interesting. And that's when we get, and also this is the first time we see her in the red outfit, the really, really bright red outfit. So, what was your take on the her suit?
I don't know what that was about. I didn't understand it.
Hmm.
That kind of made things a bit, they should have put her in like black or something. I don't know. I guess that she was just trying to be noticed more. Maybe that was what the red was about, but it was okay.
Hmm. Well, keeping in mind too, I think in the Daredevil movie, she had Garner's character had a leather jacket on, leather suit on, and I think fans of the comic book wanted the Elektra suit, so Frank Miller drew her in a bright red. Though let's be honest, I mean, if you're sneaking up on somebody in a bright red outfit, you're not going to not be seen. You stand out, so that's kind of a given. What did you think of Kristen Prout, the Treasure? She plays the Treasure. That's the big reveal. She got married, so it's pronounced Kristen Prout Zien. So she just married, I think, 3-4 years ago. What did you think of her character and the reveal of her character in near the middle of the end of the movie? Sorry.
Um, that was a bit of a surprise, like like the little kid was the golden child or whatever.
Yeah.
It was interesting, not too bad, but a bit of a surprise, which is kind of good, I guess. That somebody is like they're a little kid, who they have to protect and stuff.
Okay,
Yeah,
so what do you think about the villains? I mean, the villains are crazy.
interesting story. Not bad. It was okay. I wouldn't want to see it again, but it was.
Okay, you know when they had like Pride, Prejudice, and Zombies, which is based on a book, or you had like Sense, Sensibility, and Sea Monsters, or like Abraham Lincoln, Vampire Hunter. If you could have something like that, injected into this movie, like Elektra and the Dragon. Have the dragon from Reign of Fire because Rob Bowen directed Reign of Fire, but have it from Dragonheart where you have like Sean Connery doing the voice of the dragon, and having him burn all the hand as they travel on the field. That'd be kind of cool if you had that. That would be kind of a cool subplot. But and it would be a little more entertaining. But though the budget would be much more bigger, but it would be kind of insane. And if you're not going to take it seriously, then why not go all out crazy? But it was very self-contained. It played it safe, and I think that's where it faltered. But I didn't hate it. And I think if you watch it now, I think you can enjoy it a little bit better. It wasn't a horrible movie. It just didn't find its audience, and I think it would have found an audience if it went to VOD and it wasn't promoted as being a blockbuster, because that's how it was marketed and sold. Like it would be a blockbuster movie, and with the soundtrack from Evanescence being such a big hit for the Daredevil movie, this one had a different kind of. There was no major songs that was a hit, but it was so much on the heels of Daredevil. I think it was 2 years later, and it didn't really do any favors for the movie. So yeah. So with that, I'm Ray. We'll talk to you later.